Welcome to the Champagne Society. We believe every mama deserves a break and some bubbly. And normalizing the struggle of the mama juggle reminds us we're always doing better than we think, and we're in this together. I'm your host, Gervase Kolmos, mom of three and certified mindset coach for moms. Each week, we'll be having unfiltered conversations with other inspiring entrepreneurial moms to hear their real life moments and lessons learned on what it actually takes to make it motherhood and instead of motherhood or. Pour yourself a drink and lock yourself in the bathroom because I have a potty mouth and I never have just one glass of wine. As my 4-year-old says,
let's talk about important things.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have the gorgeous and very 10,000 weeks pregnant Brittny with us to get real about the mama juggle of a teacher during the pandemic. So thanks for being here, Brittny. I really appreciate your time.
Oh my God.
Mostly because you're literally
Thank you.
gonna give birth on Saturday and it's a Monday. So
Yes,
like, truly, I
know.
I was literally like, oh my gosh, she's about to have a baby. So I don't know when this podcast is going to go live, but like, let's get you on it tomorrow. So thank you for making time. What do I want you to know? Oh, I want everybody here to know that I know Brittny because she was a past panelist of an in-person event we did in Charleston. And then she became an Instagram friend through that process. And also because of this process, I'm all now also obsessed with her mom, which maybe we can talk about your mom because I've really been wondering, like, how is she doing?
A lot of people are.
I got it out. So why don't we have you kick us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you spend your days, like your leisurely days as a pregnant mom, teacher, of two other existing humans. Would you mind?
Right. Wow. Oh, well, I've been teaching since 2002, right out of college. I thought about going to law school, and I believe I've shared this before, but as I was taking the LSAT, I was sitting there thinking, this is not me. This is not interesting. I'm so bored. I paid to take it, so I need to bubble in the rest of these real quick, and I was done. And my mom is an educator. My grandmother is an educator. I come from a long line of educators. And I think I always wanted to teach, but I felt it was so expected. I was trying to force something else to happen. And once I decided to teach, it was fluid. And I haven't really looked back at this point. But yes, I'm an educator. I am in school. I'm on hiatus, but I've decided to go back to get my degree in administration so that I can become a leader in a different capacity than what I am doing right now. So that's on pause because, as you said, I am expecting. I will deliver on Saturday. It is a planned C-section. So that's how I know it's Saturday.
Yeah. Which is like amazing, honestly. I was so jealous. I'm so jealous of planned C-sections. When I was pregnant this last time, I was like, I would pay so much money for somebody to just be like, yep, what time you want tomorrow? Sounds good. But also tell everybody you have, this is not your first child. This is, how many children do you already have?
No, this is third.
This is third.
I have Bean, as some of y'all may actually know of her, but Bean, she's 9.
She's on Instagram, Sweet Life of Bean, by the way.
She's on Instagram.
Follow her.
I have a 4.5-year-old, Mr. PJ, as we call him. He is one of the, just like Bean, he is one of the sweetest children I have ever encountered. And I'm not just saying that because he's mine. He is truly he's just really, really kind. It's very odd.
I wonder why. So
he's just
weird.
really kind, and I don't know. It's very, I'm sometimes just surprised, but it's innate. Mm-hmm. It's just innate. But we've been home together along with my husband since March 16th. I know the exact date because that's when schools shut down here in my district. And we have spent probably the most amount of time we've ever spent together in since their existence. And even with my husband,
you're like, till death do us part. Actually, I would give a lot for some distance right now. Wait, but question.
It's crazy.
You said, yes. What does your husband do? Like, so he obviously has been working inside the home. Was he working remotely for whatever job he had?
For the most part, he works for ESPN. So he works in sports. So for the longest, college sports, they were on standstill. They were, he was doing planning meetings and everything was a what if. And of course, we're praying that it happens because if sports would have shut down, I mean, we were screwed for the most part.
You mean like your income?
That's why we moved it. Income. Oh yeah. Income.
Yeah.
We would have been screwed. So and it's one of the reasons why we moved to the Charlotte area because of his job. So
man, that's so stressful.
I am a I guess spiritual person, not necessarily religious, if that makes sense. So,
Same.
I mean, there was a lot of prayer. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just holier than thou, but there was a lot of, God, please, make this work out.
Yeah.
And my mom is a true believer. I mean, that's how she was raised. And she was a true guiding light for us to keep us sane. I have to say that my mom and my grandmother,
wait,
God bless them.
Time out. I got to tell everybody about your mom real quick, because for those of you who have never met, wait, what's your mom's name? Can I say her name, or is that, I don't know. Michelle
right. Meekin.
So when
she doesn't care.
She is so amazing. She radiates this glow of positivity and warmth. And I can totally see why you guys are so close. And she came to, for those of you who weren't there, which is probably most people listening, she came to the event that we did in Charleston like a year ago or a year and a half ago. And she like stood up in the crowd when Brittany's like spilling her guts and gave everybody, the wisdom of the next generation of a mom looking back. And
I know
she was so supportive.
She's
and
so
wise and so
she is.
Just dreamy
really
to be
is.
around. She just brought peace to everyone. I think everybody in that room that night of that event was like, okay, it's going to be okay. Because we had gotten into some.
She's a good person. She's a good egg.
She is a good egg.
She's a good egg.
So for you though, as a teacher, backtracking for a second. So you were home. So I know a lot of teachers are back in schools. Was that never on the table for you?
It was not on the, we had the option. Unfortunately, in my district, we were given, teachers and parents were given the option of your child can return in traditional setting or
that's what we had
as a teacher, you can opt to apply. And so we did the same thing. And in my head at the time, I'm always thinking, like my brain is always working. So I said, well, if I return, I'm going to be pregnant by that point in time, because we were returning August 31st. And I thought to myself, there's no way in hell I'm going to be in that school with 2,000 some odd high school students, pregnant, trying to be in front of, and then we didn't have any real answers on what PPE and all this. And then I have a 4.5 year, I just said, if I can, I want to do virtual. And my doctor is really who pushed for me to do virtual. And she was, a huge advocate. And she still is a huge advocate for women who are pregnant and making sure that they're safe in their work environments. Yeah. And I have some colleagues and just friends who are teachers who don't have a doctor that's the same way. They were like, your doctor pushed for you to do virtual? My doctor said they couldn't do anything related to that. And I was just kind of taken aback because, obviously pregnant women are already just susceptible to any and everything because of immune system. So and my age, I'm deemed geriatric.
Yeah.
That's totally on my actual medical record. Yeah,
Me too.
I
I
have
was
my
geriatric
cane.
too.
So,
Cane.
so to hear that, so all those lovely labels
Yeah.
played a role, obviously, in me deciding to do virtual. But it is not homeschool.
Right. Because homeschool is when somebody is like takes their kid out of the school system, and they're like, I take this on. I will teach.
Correct.
I will create the lessons and teach them. Versus virtual learning, like what my daughter is doing, which is what Bean is doing, I believe, which is what you're teaching.
Right.
Which is like you
Exactly.
do the curriculum, and do you do Zoom calls? You have Zoom calls with your students? I'm guessing.
We have to use Google Meet.
Oh,
We use Google Meet. We are not allowed to use Zoom because it's not really deemed safe.
Oh,
there's some crazy things have popped up in Zoom.
Oh God, I don't even
So our district uses Google Meet. It's always something. I
this
mean,
podcast was sponsored by
no
Google
matter what
Meet.
you do.
Okay, so question. I know I keep saying that, but now that your doctor pushed for you to stay home and you were like, I'm not going back into school,
right.
Super pregnant. But now that you've been home with Being virtual schooling and your husband's been home, and then what do you call him? Mr. P? Or what do you call him? What's the 4.5-year-old doing?
Mr. PJ.
Who's taking care of Mr. PJ?
Oh my.
Who? What's he doing?
Well, funny story.
Yeah, tell me.
BJ is, he's living life right now. I have to be honest, but I will say for at least an hour every day, my mom is teaching him. She calls every day and has a
There
lesson
she goes
plan.
Again. In comes Michelle
Over
swooping
FaceTime.
in. Oh my gosh. But okay.
Over
So
FaceTime. And I mean, like they have a standing classroom appointment. He gets the iPad. I mean, he
it's a freaking
is
cutest thing.
obsessed
And he'll
with
do it. Like,
his
he's into
classroom time with her.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like that would not work for everyone.
If she calls him late.
Mm,
No, not my mom. Well, my mom is a former educator.
right.
She's, hyper patient. She is just in her, and her background is elementary.
Mhm.
So for me, it's high school. I have no patience for
Right.
elementary. So it wouldn't work if the roles were reversed.
Right.
So she calls literally every day and they get on the iPad and they have the lessons and it cracks me up. But I mean, it's been a saving grace because Paul is working 24/7 from home. Yeah. Maya has her routine because I'm teaching 90 students right now virtually. So
wow. And are you like on a Zoom call all day? Or sorry, not Zoom. Are you on a Google Meet call all day, or is it you have little like scheduled calls?
I have scheduled meetings or class times with my students. I've set up a schedule that I feel works best for that age group because let's be honest, 14 to 16-year-olds sitting on a conference call in a group we have 90-minute blocks.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Right.
So I meet with them in 30-minute increments every other day. Mm-hmm. And on the days we are not meeting live, I pre-record. I give them, some motivation. I say positive, words of affirmation and all that good stuff. And then we use Google Classroom. I put my tasks for the day in there. I give them a checklist. I'm available to them from 8:40 until 3:40 every single day. And then I have office hours. So it's a level of flexibility that I wouldn't have, obviously, if I were in a traditional classroom. But with 90 students versus 67 students, which I would have if I were in a traditional classroom, the workload is obviously different.
Yeah.
And you have babies acting as if they're in a college setting when many of them have not been set up to be in that kind of setting. So it's a whole new world is all I'll say. It's different.
Yeah. Oh gosh. It's so, I can't imagine being a teacher right now. And I mean, whenever I read an email to my daughter's teacher, I'm like, I just want to start by saying, I really appreciate you. And I'm so sorry to be the squeaky wheel. I just have a quick question. So, I mean, thank you. Thank you for what you do. It's so nice that there's people that were taking their LSATs and then thought, you know what? F this. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a teacher. Like, that takes us, I think it's a calling, like that my friend who's a teacher was like, it feels a bit like a calling. And so to now have it be this thing where the expectations are all messed up and all of the passion is taken out of it for the teacher and the connection with the students. And so she's like, it feels super unrewarding for her. So I imagine
it's hard.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask you initially, like, now that you're in it, doing the virtual thing, do you have any regrets? Are you like, maybe I should have just left this house where I've been with these same people, like juggling that and just been in a classroom? Or are you feeling like you made the right decision? Not that you have regrets. I'm kidding. But, I'm sure being home has
there are moments. There are moments when I look at the workload that some of my colleagues have that are in their traditional setting, and the equity is bothersome at times because I have, again, 90 students versus some that have a total of 67.
But
or 70 or 60.
Why did it get shaken out like that?
Well, you had more teachers to go back. You had more teachers to stay traditional than to deal with virtual because a lot of people are afraid of technology.
Yeah.
Even though we now are in a world of technology, a lot of teachers, when they hear it's virtual, you'll have to communicate in ways as if you are almost a college professor. And if you don't have I don't want to say the training, if you don't have the mentality to be flexible and say, you know what, I think this is going to work. And then when you hear your class sizes will be significantly larger, well, hell, I'm not doing that. I'll wear PPE. I'll go in. And if you did traditional, you're on an A/B day schedule. So you had possibly 10 students in a classroom at one time versus 30 at one time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're kind of thinking in those terms. But again, when I look at what I needed at this moment in my life, based on my children being at home, me feeling sane during this time, because I deal with anxiety. I mean, I am the worst person right now when it comes to germs, and I'm getting better, but I knew what I needed to do to make myself feel sane, to make my children feel safe, and for me to be healthy, as healthy as I can be during this time. And so I look at the bigger picture. There are always the what ifs, but I'm thankful that if I am not feeling well because my legs are swollen, I can stretch out on the bed and teach versus I have to stay focused and stand up in front of these kids and deal with them playing around with their masks.
Yeah.
Just craziness.
I would imagine it's a totally different, you show up, your energy when you show up must be really different. Like in person, it's like, it takes so much.
Totally.
I feel like it takes double the energy at least to show up.
Totally.
And to be in a space with somebody, especially if you are like an empath or you take on other people's energy, like that's a lot versus virtual. There is a benefit to it in that way. But I guess I just was worrying, okay, you chose virtual, but now you're home and you've got Mr. PJ, and you've got Bean, and it's a lot. But that actually, when you were talking about swollen ankles, oh my gosh, I feel like, I know I was just pregnant. So no, my third is 10 months old ish.
I know. How old is your baby?
He's 10 months old, and I feel like I blinked and it happened. But also I feel like the last 6 months of my life has been like a runaway train, and I've just been clinging to the back. Like, don't fall off. So
it's this year has just been, Lord.
It's been an intense
year. You said that
year.
it's been a year and some change since the panel in Charleston. I look at how much my life has changed since I was sitting on that panel. Like never in a million years would I think in October of 2020, I'd be 40 and 9 months pregnant, third child, like none of that. So I think so many people's lives have been.
But pandemic aside, did you plan this pregnancy or was this a surprise?
Oh gosh. This was a surprise. And when I say, I know people always go, how can pregnancy be a surprise? You know where babies come from. But when I tell you that you obviously, I mean, like people who have become pregnant, they know that pregnancies can be surprises. I mean, they can be true surprises. And when I tell you that I thought back in March when I was feeling ill that I had COVID and my mom had to take me to the ER, she was here. She's always here. She was here with me. I was feeling just wretched. Oh my God. And I thought I needed a COVID test. I went to the ER. They were taking their slow time with examining me. I was pressing the button because the first thing they do, they always go, "Are you pregnant?" I go, "No,
I'm not stupid.
No."
I need surgery."
And so they said, "Right." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm dying, Mom. Where's your mask?" Like no one's wearing. I mean, I was out of it. And my mom said, "Brittny, if you were truly ill, they would have been in here sooner." Like when you go to the ER, they have a hierarchy of, right. And I was like, "I'm dying in here. I'm pressing the button, trying to get an IV, something to make me feel better." They refused to give me anything. And so finally, when the doctor comes rolling in, she's all calm. I was like, "I'm dying." I was just stretched out. And she said, "Well, and it's 2 a.m. at this point." She said, with you expecting, there's only so much we can do for you. And I have never seen my mom.
What did Michelle do? Tell me.
She looked at me. She had on a mask, but I could see her facial expression. And I let out the loudest scream in my life. Doctor left. She was so taken aback by
your
me squealing like a pig when I heard I was pregnant that she said, "I'll come back." Yeah. I mean, I fell out. It was like a bad Hallmark movie or something. It was what a horrible
time to find yourself unexpectedly pregnant. Like obviously now, when the baby comes, you'll love it and it'll be a blessing and blah, blah, blah. But to find yourself whoopsie pregnant at the start of a terrifying pandemic is real bad timing.
Right.
So like what
I'm
is
in an ER now? I'm in an ER pregnant.
Yeah. Like where you're not supposed to go, like stay away from hospitals. So then what has it been like being pregnant during a pandemic? I've been so curious when I see different women that I know or follow on Instagram and, some of them are pregnant for the first time. And I'm like, I don't know, it's either the best thing or the worst thing. And I mean, obviously life is not best and worst. There's a lot in the middle, but it could be both simultaneously. But I'm curious, since you've done it twice before, how this time was different.
Oh, wow. This time, now, if you were to ask Paul, that's my husband, he'll say, "You say this every time." But this time, I think I being more mature and being honest with myself, this time was one of the more lonelier pregnancies that I have ever had, because every single appointment I am going by myself. I've never had that before.
Yeah.
And even though Paul could go to appointments, he may not make all of them because he was working, but he still would come to some. When I first heard the baby's heartbeat, I was by myself. And so every appointment I've gone to from beginning to end, I'm praying everything's going to be okay, because you know your brain just works when you're going to have to anything dealing with pregnancy. And it's like, if I get crazy news, I have to call someone. No one's there to hold my hand. And it's been almost an out of sight, out of mind, even with my friends. And they would probably knock me in the back of my head for saying this, because they've been there and we talk all the time. But when people don't see you, it's different in a way of support. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, you're due soon. You're pregnant.
Forget. Yeah. You're like, right. I've had 20 days of being pregnant since we last talked. It's like your reality every moment.
Exactly. And so, And so it's a different level of independence, and almost just kind of, you feel like you're on an island at times, especially when it's the third child. I don't know how it was for you, but the more children you have, people are kind of like, all right, you've done this before.
Yeah.
It's your third. They check in on you, but it's not the same. It's not the same as if it's your first. If it's the same gender, they're like, you're good. You know what you're doing. Yeah. So it's all of that has played a role in being pregnant at home. Not by myself, but just kind of, it's just different. And I've had different levels of anxiety than I've ever had. That's new
for you,
being pregnant.
Do you always struggle with anxiety? Okay. So it's just heightened.
Yeah, it's always there. It's heightened. And just the state of the world. And just the state of the world. And I believe I would be a saner person if I stayed off social media. I mean, Facebook, I mean, Instagram. I applauded you when you took the break.
My break.
And I was like, when you took your break, I was really, I applauded you. And it's not like, oh my God, you did something so novel, but it was the fact that you put yourself before just being on this random, platform that so many of us are on to fill our time. And you were fine with that. And and my mom has even said to me, when I've had my moments of freaking out, she said, Brittny, if you would remove yourself from conversations, from even the scrolling, you think it's not impacting you, but it is. Yeah. It gets into your psyche, and you're up at 2 a.m. and you have a dream and you're like, oh my God, you see someone coughing. You're like, oh God, why are you coughing? And so it's like all these things play a role.
Well,
and
especially since now,
as long as we've had.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to say, especially now with social media, I do think that it's not just like keeping up with your friends, and it's not just watching businesses. It's like news, conspiracy theories, environmental stuff, like what horrible things are happening in the world. It's everything. Like I felt like it was overstimulating to the point where I was feeling like, oh, what are my thoughts? Like what do I even believe, or what news do I don't even know, because I'm right. Everything, just a few scrolls, so yeah.
This is the worst. And I feel like this is the worst time for it to be an election year. I was like, of all times for this to be an election year. So now we're not only dealing with COVID, we're now dealing with politics. Yeah. We're now dealing with religion. Two topics that make or break friendships and families. And it's like, oh my God. And I have some friends, they are obsessed with both right now.
Yeah. But I was going to say, and this is like, we talked about this before we went live, but there's like another layer to you that I was like, this must be impacting you in some way, the Black Lives Matter revolution that's happening. So it's not, it's not just politics, religion, a business, pretty pictures, influencers. It's also like humanity, it's racism stuff, like racist stuff, like all the things. So like, do you think, I feel like for all of those reasons, when I asked you, how has this pregnancy been different? I could imagine that one's anxiety would be so much worse already because you have hormones. And I just feel like, I don't know about you, but for me, hormones are a real bitch. But then how
they're terrible.
Do you feel though that like the Black Lives Matter stuff was also like playing a big role for you because you're also not just a mom and pregnant during a pandemic and now a teacher teaching from home and with your family 24/7. You're also a Black mother, a Black educator, probably walking this line of
Right.
whatever that looks like. I can't even imagine. What has that been like for you?
It's been tough. I've had to pull back. I've had to reel myself in because at
What do
the
you
start
mean? Reel yourself in
of
like,
when I felt myself being overextended in that I was allowing myself to be pulled into multiple conversations, groups, platforms that were being established to where I said, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, and my mom and I will sometimes say this, but I'm not Sojourner Truth. I'm not Harriet Tubman. In that, I can't. I alone cannot take on the weight,
the emotional labor of white people,
the emotional labor. I like
feel
that.
guilty.
The emotional labor.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Exactly.
It's a real thing.
And there's nothing wrong with me saying I'm here to support, but I have nothing left to give right now.
Good
because
for you.
I'm trying to survive as a mother, friend, educator. Like there's all these other facets I too am trying to deal with. And to make myself so hyper focused on a social issue that I deal with, that I dealt with since, the beginning
You're like,
of
this
time.
isn't new.
I can't change. Right. And so right now it's so heightened. And my mom and I, we have these conversations every time she's here because I don't know if you've noticed how the landscape of media publications has changed. And so right now it's nouveau for us to, and it's amazing. I think it's great that people are now aware.
Right.
But what I don't want to happen is that we out the gate are going 100 miles per hour and we fill out because it's no longer nouveau. And that's why I said I had to pull back and temper myself, because there are some people, this is new to them. Black Lives Mattering and, oh my God, the social injustices, this is new. So they're woke. It's a gung-ho moment for them, something, a savior moment to grab onto. And I had to tell myself, well, just because you're now all in and you're looking to change the world, this didn't happen overnight. So I'm not going to jump on this platform with you and now become so self-involved that I forget that there are other, again, facets to my life that still need attention.
Right. That seems like it would be really hard.
It's tougher being, it's tougher being, I feel like, a Black educator during this time than anything else, because we toe a fine line of either people seeing Black Lives Mattering as a social issue, a humanity issue, or see it as a political issue. And when you teach in, whether it's private or public education, and depending on the district that you teach in and your demographics, it's hard being a Black African-American teacher when you want to be vocal. You want to make sure that you are incorporating curriculum that is diverse. But then you also have to be mindful of that you are also a teacher of all students. So that has played a role, I think, in some of my colleagues. I'm a little bit safe right now because, again, I'm teaching virtually and much of my curriculum is predetermined.
Do you feel like you can't bring your full self to the table as an educator because you're worried, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't,
I feel like, and this is all hypothetical because I don't know, but I feel like if I were in a traditional school setting, take away COVID, for a moment.
Yeah.
And it was 2019. It's 2019. Black Lives Matter has really spurred some social action like it is now. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how if I would feel hindered in any way, but I will say I have always been vocal in making sure that curriculum is diverse, whether it be due to race, whether it be due to gender, orientation, whatever the case is. That's always been a passion of mine, because I know what it feels like to sit in a classroom and be the only minority, and the one book you get to read is Huck Finn.
Yeah.
And Jim is the Black character and he's a slave, so, and the N word is being thrown around. I know that feels like, as being the one diverse novel that's read. So I've always been vocal in my beliefs on diversity and being inclusive. Again, when you say the phrase, though, Black Lives Matter, you decide to wear a t-shirt or you decide to have a flag in your classroom, that's when the narrative changes and it makes people uncomfortable, even though you've been saying that all along through your actions. Those three words.
Because then it's almost,
so I don't know,
becomes political too, is what I've noticed. And we're not even going to get into all of that, but then it becomes your side, my side,
it changes
instead of our side. And I wonder, like when you said that, like, I know how it feels to be the, reading that book and the only person in the room and the Black slave. Like, I do think it would be helpful, not helpful, but I'm curious for you to paint the picture of like, what does that feel like? Because when I hear you say that, I'm like, oh, I've read Huck Finn. I remember reading that in school. And I remember that didn't even cross my mind. That wasn't even, that's not part of my memory or my experience. And then hearing you say that, it really like gets you in the heart, because you realize like, wow, such a seemingly innocent thing can hit two students so differently. But what does that feel like?
Yeah. What's weird is this: growing up, I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, Greenville County. And because of the classes I always fell in, being advanced, gifted and talented, honors AP classes, 9 times out of 10, I was the lone minority. And when I say minority, I mean Black person, because the diversity that we now see, especially in the South, we didn't really have in the 90s. And so I became used to almost wearing this veil of neutrality when things would be said, just ignorant things that are said. You go, they're being ignorant, and you don't even react. You don't even react to it. And you almost become, it's like your friends who are not Black, they forget that you are Black.
Yeah.
And so they become so comfortable with the things that they'll say in class. And of course, I hate the phrase, well, I don't see color. I want you to see that I'm a Black person.
Yeah.
Because then you'll know that when you are saying something that is highly ignorant relating to Black people, that it's going to impact me in some way.
Yeah.
But I became used to it. I'm only one of 2 Black teachers at my entire high school. I mean, there's 2,400 plus kids where I work. And there's the possibility, the chances are high that they will never have a Black teacher, just based on there's only 2 of us.
Yep.
So again, here I stand. I'm the lone Black person, and I'm more used to that. And so when I see other teachers, other Black teachers, when they've been hired, I'm like, thank God. Thank God. And not so much for me, but so that these kids can see some diversity.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, white parents, I'll even say, I'll say majority white parents will never have that experience of getting excited when you walk into a classroom and seeing that your child's teacher looks like your child, because that's the norm. You would not believe the excitement that a lot of minority parents have, especially Black parents have, when we walk into a classroom and we find out that our child's teacher is Black. It excites us because that's not norm depending on the district where you live. If you are in an urban neighborhood, and I hate the term urban, but if you're in an urban neighborhood, that may be a given, but again, that may not be, because there's all these Teach for America initiatives that are predominantly white.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it's just different lenses and perspectives that we don't realize that many of us take for granted. And so when you hear other people's stories, and it helps for your eyes to be open, like, oh snap, I never thought about that. That's true.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I'm so grateful. Every time I hear like another perspective that I haven't heard from a woman of color, I'm like, oh, I just want to read these books all day long. And it's like, you know, the classic, like, I feel the shame, like a white woman's shame. And I'm like, good. I should feel bad about that. I should feel it's ridiculous that I didn't have to know what it feels like to read that book and only have the only person in the book that looks like me is a slave. So anyway, I really appreciate you sharing that perspective and sharing it from your experience, because, because I think it will be really eye-opening for a lot of listeners. And on that note, I wanted to ask you, like, what do you do to care for yourself? You know, like, I feel like all of that is so intense. Like, what do you do to care for yourself mentally, emotionally? Like you were saying, you were, doing emotional labor. I just mean for you as a pregnant mama and an educator and a Black woman, like, have you been able to do, like, even squeeze in any pockets of caring for yourself, nourishing yourself?
For all the, I think, complaints that I do in regards to my husband, he's always like, oh, here we go. What did I do now? You know, but for all that I will purport about him, he has been one of my biggest supporters during this time. And if I say I need a nap, that's one of my go-tos. Closing our bedroom door. I don't even need to lock it. Closing our bedroom door and telling him, I don't feel good. I'm tired. I feel like I'm about to, I need to go take a rest. Okay. And he's got me. He says, okay. It's not a thing of, well, I've been up, I'm downstairs, these kids are running around. It has not been that. And those are the times that I need to remember when I get frustrated with him, but he goes, okay. He said, okay, all right. And I mean, I even kind of fell on the sword at one point and was like, having to do the quote unquote traditional things around the house that are expected, that just aren't in me. I'm not a cook. I can cook well. I don't like cooking. And I sat down with him and said, look, I love cleaning. I love folding clothes. I like cleaning the bathrooms. It's therapeutic for me. Vacuuming is therapeutic. I love it. Oh my God. I love cleaning. It's just something I've always liked. I don't like cooking nor cleaning the kitchen.
Well, listen, you can't have it all.
I mean, I can't have it all, but we came to the decision that he was like, you know what? I don't necessarily like cooking, but I know it's needed. And so he's taken that on. We have truly split responsibilities that help me out, that help to keep me sane, that will keep me from, metaphorically jumping out of the window. I've tried the whole, I'm not big on getting my nails and feet done. I don't know. That's just never been a thing for me.
Yeah. Well, that's not emotional
massages and facial
self-care anyway. So
yeah, that's not really, but some women, they thrive on that. It says it makes them feel better. But for me, if I can truly sequester myself and go take a daggum nap
Yes.
to bring everything down.
Yes.
That's what I need. And I fortunately have been able to get that. And my children are at an age where they're like, oh, I can tell them, y'all are about to push me over the edge. I need a moment. And they get it. And they go, okay. And they will close the door, and they know mommy needs her alone time. And it's not deemed anything bad.
Right.
They just know that's my personality. Paul doesn't need that. He doesn't need the off switch. He doesn't. I do. And so I've been able to emotionally do that for myself. And my mom, again, I know I talk about her a lot, but I'm glad she's retired, because she has been able to come when I've needed her at my lowest. If I'm doing fine and I need her to come to help me, she's here. So that helps my emotional stability as well. Having familial support, which I know, again, not everyone has.
Yeah. But good for you for just asking for it and owning it and not apologizing for needing space.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think women just need
I asked for it. I've stopped being silent.
Yeah.
I used to have guilt because it again, social media gives you the impression that there are some moms that are always on.
Mm-hmm.
They're always on. They're doing crafts and they're able to make these fun meals, and we're going pumpkin patch picking and apple orchard picking. And I'm like, I don't want to go in no daggum orchard. I'll get you some apples. It's and so for me, I've had to, again, pull away from allowing social media to tell me what type of mom I need to be and what makes for a good mom.
I want a slow clap for that. Shit is so good. I won't clap though, because I know it's really bad for the mic, but that is so, see, that's the kind of mental and emotional self-care I'm talking about. Like, okay, social media is not real, and I don't need, like that is not me. I am the perfect
It's hard.
mom for my kids.
It's not. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. But do you think that you were like that your first go round?
Oh, my first go round was totally different.
Yeah. Because
I was not teaching at the time. I was 30. I was living in Chicago. We were all over the place. Yeah. I was, every day we had a little schedule, and I was taking Maya to Pottery Barn Kids, and we were doing story time.
Yes.
And we would do Chick-fil-A.
Did you go to a pumpkin patch? You did. You did.
We did. Oh, God. We went pumpkin patch. We waited in a line in cars for like an hour just to get to the daggum pumpkin patch. Yep. Maya screaming her head off. I took her out the car, and I put her in the stroller and walked her the 2 miles while Paul stayed in the car, because I was determined to. Yes, that story will go down in infamy, because I was determined to give her the experience of a pumpkin patch. And
wait,
PJ,
how old was she?
I don't think we've been to anybody.
Yeah. Wait, how old was Maya?
1 or 2.
Does she remember this pumpkin patch? I love how this pumpkin patch has really been the star of this story, because it's like you started with like, I'm not the mom that goes to the pumpkin patch, and then you finish with like, well, I was the mom that walked 2 miles to the pumpkin patch.
I
will have this memory, and that's kind of my point.
Mom.
It's like, I think we also have to give. We got to let everybody have their season. And I do think that is what I enjoy about talking to women who are on like their third kid. I think 3 was a game changer for me, and you have no idea what you'll be like. And even if after you had 1 kid, you're like this, throw on 2 more and you're like, fuck it. I don't care. Honestly, who's got the time?
I know.
But it's great. If that's your thing, It's great. But I think it's so important that we own it. Like, own the kind of mom that you are, and also recognize that, like, the woman you're judging now might be the woman you were 8 years ago. And that's cool too. It's like, whatever, it all shakes out in the wash.
And
that you love folding.
Right.
Apparently.
And I've become more, I've noticed one thing that has happened with just me being 40 and being pregnant and having experienced just different situations with each child is I am fine with making certain proclamations about what I will and what I won't do when it comes to my children. Mm-hmm. And with my first child, I remember I had one set of people over here who were adamant about how I needed to tend to my baby and make sure I was breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. And it's going to hurt, but you plow through it because that's what
your nipples are like.
Then bleeding. I had another group that was like, yes. And they were like, why are you putting yourself through this? You're mm-hmm. looking crazy. You are emotionally drained. And I was like, but I have to. Mm-hmm. But you don't. And then by second, I became more confident in making decisions that were best for me. And by third, I remember telling Paul like last week, so what formula are we going to give? I mean, it was a thing of knowing how my body responds mm-hmm. to just nature and what emotionally I am capable of that will make me my best self, and being hooked up to a daggum pump, pumping breast milk and taking things that help me produce milk and this, that, and the third, that for my emotional stability, for my infant and for my children and my husband and my family, mm-hmm. it doesn't work for me. Yeah. I'm fine with that. And I just wish we as moms, and we've talked about this before, that we do not meddle in other people's business. You don't need to ask me if I'm breastfeeding or bottle feeding. You don't need to ask me what kind of diapers I'm using. Yeah. That's not your business.
Yeah.
And I want all moms to truly get to that point of whatever you decide, hey, rock on.
Yeah.
Do it.
And I would add to that I have found in my own experience that really the person who's got the most judgment about my choices has been me. So I'm like, wait, who are the mm-hmm. people? Like maybe, I mean, of course you see a comment here or there or whatever, but in general, I'm like, no, it's right. me. I am not giving myself permission to do the thing I know is best for me and my family this go round. Right. And if I just decided, like if right. in the case of breastfeeding, like with my third, I was pumping and like, it was miserable. God, it was so miserable. And I like wouldn't let myself quit for so long. And then I was like, nobody else is making me do this. This is all me. This is me putting pressure on myself and judgment on myself. So
it becomes a mental thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that because I think so often we like make other people the scapegoats, and I was like, well, everybody's going to judge me if I don't.
We do.
And then I'm like, oh, actually nobody really gives a shit because everybody's busy living their own lives. So if we just own it.
And that's another good thing about this time. Everyone truly is in their own business right now.
Totally. Everyone's just like, how do I survive?
I know they're like, what? Okay, whatever. I mean, It's just like, I don't care. You didn't call me back. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's so that is a saving grace right now, because as you said, everyone has their own stuff going on. Yeah. They don't have time to be in your business. And if they do, that's sad.
We do have to remember that though. Like put it in context. I'm like, I need to make this right sized. So yeah, but I love what you said there about like the emotional self-care and the mental self-care. So good. So good. You are caring for yourself in lots of ways. I'm very proud of you. Thank you for sharing that. People need to hear all of that. And we are going to wrap this up here. I wanted to ask one last question that I think you actually just shared basically the answer to this question. But, if you could go back in time, so 9 years ago, and tell pre-motherhood Brittny, like one piece of advice that you now know, like 8 years down the line, 3 kids, now you sound like you've really accrued so much wisdom from the experience. Like what's one thing that you would want to tell yourself before embarking on this adventure that is having children?
This is going to kind of sound bad, but I'm going to clarify. I think it's good to know that it takes a lot to mess a kid up.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, don't just be negligent.
Yeah. Right.
But we are so concerned with things that are out of our control that we need to just focus on things that we can control. We can control nurturing our children. We can control giving them food. That we can control. I can control that. But there's so much that is outside of our control that if you let it go, it's not going to mess them up. They'll be all right. They'll be okay. You know, decisions that, you know, as you've already said, decisions of whether to breastfeed or not, they'll be all right either way. No matter the decision you choose, they will be okay. If you decide to, you know, use cloth diapers versus Huggies, whatever the case is, they'll be okay. If you decide to not go apple orchard picking, your child will be just fine as a 10-year-old. I mean, you know, there's just certain things that they'll be okay. It takes a lot to mess your child up. And actually, I feel like you have to work harder to mess your child up than to not.
Metal. It's almost like do less.
That takes a lot of effort.
Just do less. I feel like when we overdo it, it's like if you're putting on makeup and you just put on all of the things at one time and it's like, maybe a little less. That was a little aggressive. Your face is a little.
You look a mess.
Look a mess. You know, I feel like less can be more, and we need to bring that way of being into parenting. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Gosh, so much wisdom. Pregnancy makes you like extra wise, Brittny. Did you know that? I felt that way too. I was like, I am like a tiny or a very large Buddha. Nothing tiny about me, but
I'm a Buddha. I'm really a Buddha.
No, and I think it's just
more ways than one.
I do think it's like hard-earned wisdom that's part of the gift of going through it multiple times. You do get better. You get better with age. So thank you so much for everything that you have shared today and diving deep into all of the things and sharing your experiences and making time for us when you are, 6 days? 6 days from having your third child. Like, you're amazing. Thanks.
Oh, yes.
And like, can I also just say one last thing? I really want to acknowledge you for being an educator and also just a role model to your kids and other kids that look like you, like what you said there about how excited, you know, Black mothers get when their kids walk into a room and you're the teacher. I mean, wow, that's so important. And so I just want to acknowledge the work that you do. I think that teachers don't get acknowledged enough. And on top of that, to be a Black teacher, like setting such an amazing standard and being just, you're amazing. You're amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on the gram, I guess. Or we can text, I guess. Good luck. Good luck on Saturday.
Yeah, we can text it and see on the gram.
You're going to crush it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.